Hey, this is Jim. Welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. Today we have a guest, and this is one of those episodes that's also on YouTube, although it's just two guys talking to each other. So no need to jump over to YouTube if you're listening to this on your favorite app today. But today we're going to talk about some very simple concepts, some very simple products that you can sell and mark up to 1,500 times what you paid for them, which is the story of Jonathan and one of his products today that's doing extremely well on Amazon. And we're going to share with you how he finds these golden gaps, these unserved niche markets in the Amazon marketplace. We're going to talk about how this young married couple, no kids yet, has big plans to go full-time very soon using the internet to live their dream lifestyle, to build an incredible business. And they've been doing this for some time. It's also one of the funniest stories I've ever heard about how someone purchased the Proven Amazon course and what went into that decision and ultimately making that decision to buy the course. We talked some about the most recent live event that happened in Central Illinois, where 700 of your fellow listeners to this podcast joined us live, and what takeaways Jonathan took with him from that event. But hey, let's talk about, before we jump into the interview, there's a little bit of housekeeping I have to do because I'm recording this introduction after the interview took place. But of course, you're hearing it before the interview. One thing I want to let you know is we pulled out a short segment of the interview because it simply revealed too much information about one of Jonathan's products. But I do want to give you the full benefit of understanding the power of the example that Jonathan shared with us. That product that he is making 1,500 time return on, it's a simple balloon. It's a custom printed balloon. And in the original interview, he actually showed it on screen and we talked about it. But hey, you know what? I didn't want to create those competitors for him. So I thought, let's cut that out and I'll just describe how simple you can do this. He got the idea from one of the modules inside the Proven Amazon course where we talk about promotional companies. Promotional companies can print, custom print, just about any logo on just about any item. There's thousands of them, and you can buy sample quantities if you'd like. We did a whole interview on this a while back, and I'll stick it in the show notes, and a whole course on this topic as well. Promotional Company Sourcing.com is that website, promotionalcompanysourcing.com. But today we've got a coupon code for you. If you're interested in that course, promotionalcompanysourcing.com, the coupon code is BALLOON, and you're going to save about 90% off that course. But also keep in mind that course is one of the numerous modules that are included in full inside the Proven Amazon course. Because if you purchase the Proven Amazon course, remember, our commitment to you is any content or training that we create that has anything to do with succeeding creatively using Amazon, it goes into the Proven Amazon course. So there's two ways to get a hold of that promotional company sourcing content. I'll stick all the links to all of this in the show notes as well. So if you're confused at all, you can just go to silentjim.com, see all the links we're talking about today. But I'm excited to jump over and show you this interview with Mr. Jonathan Marks. He's a great guy building an incredible business, very transparent, very easy to follow interview, very newbie friendly, but he's doing some powerful, exciting things. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. So thanks for joining us. Let's jump over and meet Mr. Jonathan Marks. So, hey, Jay, welcome to the show. Great to have you here, my friend. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I want to hear some of your story.
Yeah, sure. Well, glad to be here. Such an honor to be on the podcast. Been in the community for a couple of years now. And gosh, I'd say we started back in 2016. And I was on the Proven Amazon course 3 times. And so not once, not twice, but 3 times. And so third time's a charm. But yeah, started in 2016, had a full-time job. Worked at a college here, and we live in North Georgia, so in the Dalton area. But yeah, worked full time as a marketing manager here in Dalton, and so I kind of dabbled on the side and was just looking for a way to kind of generate some income that would sort of be passive, and I use that word lightly, but just a way to generate some income that would be sustainable and not require necessarily be exchanging time for money, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Trading dollars for hours. That's right.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, bought the pack course in 2016. And really, I had it for 3 days, and then I returned it. So I didn't really give it, I didn't, and it wasn't because it didn't work. It was because I did not work it. So I just kind of peeled back the curtain there to see what was there. And as a newcomer, I think I forget this sometimes. As a new person coming in to that whole Amazon world, it could be really overwhelming and kind of intimidating. At first.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, and I think what's behind a lot of that, we're starting to learn this, and we've changed the layout of the course. But just to make a little side note, as you explain why you bought the course 3 times, I bet some listeners are curious about that. But one of the things we've noticed is if we're going to create a course that is comprehensive in telling you all the different ways that you can grow a business on Amazon, some people instinctually think they approach it almost like a college textbook that they've got to read cover to cover. It's just not like that. Some of these concepts you can learn in 20 minutes, but when you mix them into this Netflix-like experience, it is I really like the Netflix analogy because it's the equivalent of maybe signing up for Netflix and thinking, oh man, I got to watch all these shows. I got to watch everything on Netflix because I'm paying for it now. So I got to watch everything. Like, no, you'll never watch everything on Netflix. It'll never happen. There's too much there. Some of that has nothing to do with you, right? But when you first see it, it's the equivalent of being overwhelmed because you have too many options.
Yeah.
Well, each option there is a different approach to succeeding on Amazon. Some of them are very simple, low-hanging fruit. Some of them are slightly more complex. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because we have taken some steps to make that initial experience a little less intimidating for our students, because there's a lot of information there, but we've laid it out differently. And maybe if we'd had it laid out differently, you wouldn't have asked for refund number 1.
Well, yeah,
three days in.
No, yeah. I mean, I thought the course was great. It wasn't the course. I think the Proven Amazon course is probably the most valuable platform for learning how to sell online out there. I would say it was definitely me, not the course, but I just don't think my mindset was in the right place at the time. So, but yeah, bought the course, peeled back the curtain. I was like, oh gosh, maybe I bit off more than I can chew. And then, not that long later, ended up buying it again for the second time. And dabbled a little bit there, not too much of anything. And then ended up returning it for the second time, and then bought it again. And then the third time was a charm, where we really started to have some breakthrough. But yeah, started out slowly with just like most people do, RA and OA. Took the course with Gary Baird and Chris Green, I think, the online sourcing course.
Yeah, the OA module, the online arbitrage module inside the Proven Amazon course. Yep, that's right.
Yep.
It's still a fantastic course. Still a module inside the Proven Amazon course. I want to make sure people realize too, we give you a refund each time, right? I mean, how big of a hassle when you said, hey, this isn't for me. I kind of think I want to wait, or, what was that experience like? I'm not in customer support. I know I've trained these people, but what was that experience like?
Yeah, I'd say Mary and me, you're a customer service lady. She's great. And so bless her heart, but she answers all my emails, and it wasn't a hassle or anything. They just told her like, hey, sorry, it didn't work out. Here's your refund. So it's like, which I love because it allowed me to kind of stumble my way kind of into slowly gaining that confidence without worrying that I was going to lose money. You know what I mean? So
yeah, sure. Well, our team now, just as a little side note, you mentioned Mary. She is still the highest ranking member. Well, I've got my mom and Mary who kind of run customer support. We've got a team of 7 to 10 people, depending on how you add them up.
Sure.
Now they handle that role. But for the longest time, it was just me. And then for the longest time after that, it was just Mary and I.
Yeah.
And we see each other once or twice a year, tops, but she's helped to build this thing by running customer support. That's one of the things we do. Hey, if someone buys a course or content from us, it's not for them. It's not like we're going to try to, hold on to their money. That's one of the ways we've maintained our reputation. Is by making sure that only people that our content can really assist are using and buying our content. So I actually kind of like the story that you actually asked for a refund twice on the exact same course, and then bought it a third time. and
Yeah.
went on to build a business. I think
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. And I've never heard that before. And I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever heard that story before.
Mhm. Yeah, I've been in some other communities, before Jim, where, gosh, there's a lot of like, bigger high ticket courses out there,
Mhm.
and we've been burned before, buying high ticket items and just not being able to do anything with the information in that. So, before I arrived into the My Silent Team community, I kind of came with sort of like a heavy and a burdened heart, in a way where
Mm.
I'm like, man, I need somebody that I can trust, number one, and a community that I can kind of surround myself with. But each time I bought the pack course and then came back, one of the things I remember was just there's kind of a spirit of trust and peace over the My Silent
Mm.
Team community.
I
And I
love
think,
that. You
yeah,
detected a sense of peace. Yeah. I mean, that's what proving your ideas does. The
mhm,
first, Jonathan, I don't know if you've heard this story or not, and maybe the listeners have or haven't, but when I first went full time, this is, my wife is 8 months pregnant,
mhm,
our third child. I'd lost my job. I was going at this into it, both feet into the fire, way faster than I'd planned on. This is 17 years ago. I went to an event, an internet marketing event. I'm thinking, okay, I don't have a real job anymore. I've got flexible time. I can go wherever I want. Let's drive down to Tennessee. Let's go to this event. We've actually hosted one of our events at this same venue, and I told this story that year. I think it was our third annual event in
it was in
Tennessee,
Nashville.
the Nashville one. Yeah, I shared from stage this story, but in the very room we were standing in, I was presenting, in front of several hundred people from our community, and said, the first event I ever went to, I went in with high hopes and kind of a glimmer in my eye and this excitement. I'm going to meet the leaders of the industry and other people who are doing this. And it was a pitch fest. For those who aren't familiar with the industry, a pitch fest is basically they charge you a little bit of money to get you in the seat. And then they just hit you over and over and over and over and over with different business ideas that cost you anywhere from $1,000 to $6,000 to $8,000. And it's a contest between the speakers to see who can get the most people to run to the back of the room
Mhm,
and whip out the credit card, and ideally more than once. Oh,
mhm.
it's
The table
it's
rush.
almost tragic,
Mhm,
right? And I've been
mhm.
invited to those events over the years. I've never taken up anyone's on the offer. They say, "What are you going to sell at the back of the room? What's your price point?" I'm like, "I don't have anything to sell at the back of the room. I don't like selling big ticket items to strangers. I want a relationship. I want
Yeah,
people to ease their way into this, to truly
sure.
trust us. I want peace throughout the entire process because it put a
Mhm,
lot of strain on my wife and I. We were already in a lot of strain at that point, a lot of
mhm,
stress.
mhm.
Why go back to the hotel room and hey, this guy is saying if we spend another 4,000, if we spend another 8,000, if this guy sounds exciting, we didn't fall for it. We didn't buy any of it, and I determined I would never do that. If I ever succeeded, I
Mhm,
would set a new standard and I would
mhm,
call those guys out.
mhm.
Maybe not by name because you can get yourself into lawsuits that way.
Yeah.
No one needs that.
Right.
Basically, these guys are trying to sell courses for thousands of dollars to anybody that whips out a credit card, even online.
Sure.
Just not legit, man. We've
Yeah.
never done a big launch like that. So thanks
Mhm.
for giving me a chance to share. This is your episode, buddy. But that kind of says,
Yeah.
that's where that sense of peace comes from is man, we're not going to do that. We're going to
Mhm.
build relationships. So I think
Mhm.
we're reaping the rewards of the way we've done it with the kind of
Sure.
community we've built. And you've experienced it. Maybe as part of your story, you can talk a little bit about the most recent event, the ones you've
Yeah.
been to. And but
Sure.
please continue. Thanks for allowing me to interrupt.
No, yeah, that's great. A lot of what you just talked about, you can sense that. I was able to sense a lot of that in the spirit. And, when I, refunded the course and then would go on about my business. And when I felt like it was time to start again, I remembered that, that sense of trust and the peace and just feeling like you all had my best interest at heart and not trying to take advantage of anything. And just willing to work with me over time. So that eventually, that spirit of trust and that spirit of peace that's over this community, eventually that's what brought me back. And I'm committed. This is kind of my home turf. And we had the chance to come to the Approving Conference for the first time this past month, about a month ago, actually. So,
That's right. A little over a
uh,
month ago.
yep. And man, that blew our mind. It really did.
Was
It
that your
really.
first event with our community? That was the seventh time we've done that.
Yes, sir. That was the
First
first
time.
one.
And
Yeah,
it was
we
the best. They keep getting
Yeah.
better every time. We keep wondering how we're ever going to make it better the next time, and it keeps happening.
I can't imagine. I can imagine. I did the live stream before. Probably
Hmm.
for the past probably 3 years, we've done the live stream.
Hmm.
But yeah, we were excited. The wife came. She's not directly involved in the business. She does help with the accounting, and different things. And she's put a lot of trust in me to
Hmm.
kind of leave my day job and to be able to kind of spend time building this. But she was right there with me. And by the time she left, she was fully educated on the acronyms OA and RA and proven
That's
private
great.
label. So she was talking to me. We drove 9 hours to be there,
Wow.
all the way from Georgia.
From
So it was a
Georgia up.
long road trip, a lot of cornfields. But yeah, we were blown away by that. We went to the worship service the first night, and really not knowing what to expect. I've never been to a conference before for my own business. I've been to plenty of them in my previous job, but never been to one for our own industry. And so that was my first experience. And number one of the first things that stood out to me is one of the first people I saw when I got there was Brett. And I remember walking through the church doors there, and Brett was walking out, and I was quite, up to this point, I've only heard y'all, on a podcast or on a
Hmm.
video. And so I was a little bit of a fanboy walking in, seeing Brett. And then the next person I saw, I think, was Eric Bussey, and then saw
Hmm.
you standing there. You were standing at the entrance into the worship hall. And I was a little caught off guard by that. So I'm like, normally at these big events like this, you would normally expect the people who lead those events to be kind of behind the curtain. And so one of the
Mm.
things I noticed throughout the entire conference, Jim and Brett, y'all were standing at the back of the room more than you were, in the front of the room, if that makes sense. And so that really stuck with me. I'm like, man, when they say they are not only, in this community, they are part of this community. I saw evidence of that at the conference, and y'all are just walking around just like y'all are a guest at your own conference. And so
Here's what's going on with that. Let me explain that, because I don't know how those guys, one of the things I remember is one of the guys at the event that I attended, the one that was done the wrong way. He had a certain soundtrack that he wanted played as he walked to the stage. He had certain light settings that he wanted. He wanted the spotlights in certain order with different colors and on the stage. And I was like, that's like a diva, man. Like, you going out to your trailer afterwards or what? Like, come on,
yeah,
you've got to be kidding me.
sure.
For me, I feel like I'm going to a family reunion when we all get together. That's what it feels
Hmm.
like to me. And sure,
Hmm.
the family is growing. It's growing fast. I mean, we had
Yeah.
over 700 people there. That's a lot more talking than I'm used to doing in a day. But I'm there to learn, to grow, to meet people in the community. I
Sure.
come away energized spiritually
Hmm.
and emotionally, and you feel validated. Man, this is my
Hmm.
tribe. The last thing I'm going to do is hide behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And and we've said all along, Jonathan, you've heard us say this. We have no need for fans and followers. I mean, it is kind of cool to see that person face to face that you've only seen on a screen, and like, oh, wow, I finally get to meet that person. Be
Sure.
excited for that, for all kinds of great people in our community.
Hmm.
I'm the same way. I see people are like, oh man, I get to see these people, the people I interviewed on the podcast, finally get to
Yeah.
shake their hand, hug their neck. But
Yeah.
but look at it as a family reunion. That's what we encourage, because
Hmm.
it's a very flat organization. There's no one up at the top getting all the credit and all the praise and all the applause. The no central character
Hmm.
that is like the dynamic personality. And some people try to put me in that role, and I resist it, maybe to the detriment of some things we could or should be doing. But
Yeah.
I've got no need for it. I want to be
Yeah.
very replaceable in my role. So
Sure.
that's what you're detecting. It's like a big family reunion. We're building a community. We're building a culture, and it's a
Hmm.
culture of success. So I appreciate you saying those things, but that's just me speaking from the heart on how we're approaching this, and
Sure.
that's kind of what's developed. And plus, I've noticed that true leaders aren't drawn to these charismatic, all roads lead to me type of personalities, right? I'm just not attracted to those guys. And other true leaders aren't either.
Sure.
I want to go somewhere where I can lead. I want to be a part of a community where leaders can find their role, find their lane, and lead. And so
Hmm.
we have dozens and dozens or hundreds of leaders at this point in our community versus one central leader that everybody reports to. It seems like a
Sure.
much stronger structure. But
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm taking such liberty to kind of go off on tangents with you today, buddy.
No,
I appreciate
no,
it, though.
totally
You're
deserved.
hitting some hot buttons for me, though. I think you're doing
No,
a better job interviewing me than I am of you today
no, totally
without
deserved.
even trying. All right. I hope I didn't interrupt you too much. So your wife, you said Whitney was there. Did we? I don't remember. Did we meet? And I think I
Yeah.
talked to you at some point, right? Were you at the VIP dinner or?
Yes, sir. We came to the VIP dinner. I don't think we didn't run into you there. We were we did meet you right after Rabbi Lappin's first talk. So
Okay.
the keynote. So we came out. I had brought both of his books, Business Secrets of the Bible and Thou Shalt Prosper. So we had those signed, and we met y'all while we were standing in line.
That's right. I
Uh,
totally remember. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
yeah. But
So what'd your wife think? That's a curious angle for us to hit too. You said she got more involved and felt a little more
mhm.
comfortable, it sounds like, with the whole
Yeah.
concept. What would she say if she were here, if you're allowed to speak for her?
Yeah, yeah. I don't get that opportunity very often, but yeah, she was blown away by it. Obviously, one of the biggest things she was kind of slated to go to was Andrea's session, and so she had the ability to go there. She went to Andrea's session, and the other big one that I think she came away blown away by was actually Mark Lassiter, which is your
Hmm.
CPA. So she went to that one, and we actually had a conversation with him earlier this week. And so we were on the phone with him, and she's been blown away by him. He said she's like he answers all my emails and writes me back. So we had a good round of networking with him. But she loved Andrea's session, and came away I think blown away by how real and how authentic I think that session was, and I think it resonated with her. There's a lot of things that I guess spouses have to deal with entrepreneurs that most people may not necessarily have to go through or experience. And so I think she found a lot of that very validating. And she was actually talking just the other day. She's like, because we're slated to come back to Boca in 2020, so we already have our tickets for that. But she's like, man, I'd love to branch more out and maybe help facilitate like some more sessions and things like that. Maybe conversation starters or something like that, or
Beautiful.
stations. Yeah. So she's
Yeah.
interested in
So
kind of
she's
doing.
all in. And for
Yeah.
those who don't know, Andrea is my wife, and you've heard me probably at different times. You've seen Andrea on the podcast. She's been on here a couple times. She's not necessarily entrepreneurial. I mean, I think she's going to get more involved in the business as we enter a different season of life. Our kids are getting older and
Sure.
moving on. But right now, she's the homeschool mom. She's an artist, and you have to be very entrepreneurial to succeed in those endeavors, but not internet business entrepreneurial, right?
Hmm.
So it's a different world. So she has a session that's quite entertaining. I've heard because I've never been allowed to attend because
Right.
she says I don't want anyone nervous to ask questions or talk about anything. She doesn't
Yeah.
allow anybody to film it. It's
Yeah.
in the and the people who really walk away enjoying it the most tend to be the spouses of the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned coming up in Florida 2020, July 21 through 23rd, theprovenconference.com for tickets and information. Actually, tickets aren't on sale. Those of you who attended had a chance to buy some tickets at a bit of a discount there, but couldn't believe how many, several hundred people bought tickets already for that event. I'm anticipating our biggest crowd ever for sure. It's going to be just a phenomenal event, but yeah, glad you guys are already booked in to come again. But
Yeah. We're
that's cool
excited.
getting your wife's impression. She couldn't be here today. You said she's at work, but yeah, that's cool kind of hearing her perspective as well. Her first exposure to this community, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think it was. I think she was blown away, and it was refreshing and extremely invigorating for me to finally be around people who I could say, talk about my business with, and they know actually what I'm talking about.
Mm.
So it's been very challenging, here in our community. Even when I was leaving, my job, people are asking me like, "What are you actually doing?" And even when I told them, there's a lot of blank stares,
Oh,
and they're like, "You're
sure.
doing what? Like you're leaving your job for what?" And
Yeah.
so that was huge for me to have a listening ear that understood the lifestyle and some of the challenges that come with that. I mean, that really filled up my spirit for that entire week. And that's really what the whole conference really done for me. I mean, it was a business conference, but in many ways, it was. I walked away, more filled spiritually than anything.
Mm-hmm.
after going to the Proven Conference. You know, we started out with the worship and seeing the whole Dynasty team on stage that night and hearing them. I mean, I don't think Brett even stood on the stage that day. It was just his team and his
Mm-hmm.
wife. And
Mm-hmm.
that really blew me away. I'm like, you can actually do this at a business conference. And then
Mm-hmm.
later on, going to Brad Cummings, which is the co-author of The Shack and the movie, went to his session, and there was kind of like, somewhat of an altar call there. I'm like, what? You can do this at a business conference? And so
Yeah.
it really just blew me away. I was like, this is pretty wild. So in a
And
good way.
what I love about it too is, I'm not going to give you the names of these people to protect their privacy, but I've had conversations with atheists who were there, with Muslims who were there, with some various different backgrounds of belief systems and worldviews, some of which in a very politically incorrect way were called out by Lappin during his highly entertaining and educational session.
Right.
And I've had a total of, with thousands of people watching the live stream, 700 plus people in attendance, I've had a total of one person complain about the way we handled this event. Because it to us, it truly is seamless.
Mm-hmm.
Business is about relationships. Relationships are about connecting with other people in a genuine way. And when you start connecting with people in a genuine way, there's a spiritual nature there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you got to agree with everything I believe, and you have to believe everything I believe. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean, hey, if I'm going to be, I like the word transparent more than authentic,
Mm-hmm.
because authenticity assumes that you can read inside of my heart, and that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a hard thing to do. So I like the word transparency. I can be transparent. I can say, hey, this is what I believe. I love you no matter what you believe, but hey, let me tell you what's working for me, and I can share very openly then at that point. And the great lie of our day right now, I think, is most dangerous lie is, if you don't line up with me in a worldview way, we can't be friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
just garbage, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's garbage.
Sure.
So when you have an entire event based on the premise of, hey, this is what we've built our company on. Here's what works. Here's what we believe. Come one, come all, hang out. Agree, disagree. That's cool. We can all be friends.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some great business training too.
Sure.
The night before the worship, but that was an optional night one event that we added for the first time. We'd never done that before. And I'd say about 70-80% of the attendees for the conference came to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it was, it's impossible to separate spiritual things from business.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, hey, why are we trying to fight that battle constantly? Let's just mix them together. The greatest book ever written on how to succeed in business is the Bible itself. So why do we leave that book out of the conversation when we're talking about how to succeed in business in some very practical ways?
Sure.
I just wanted to fill in for the listeners, and I've had a few other occasions to explain those things. But again, Jonathan, you're doing a great job interviewing me today. I appreciate that.
No, it's great. And I'll say one more thing about the conference. It was, I think a lot of people, I think everybody was at Rabbi Lappin's first keynote speech, but it was the second one, the continuation of the conversation, that really rocked my world, because he dug a little bit deeper in that session. And one of the things he talked about was the way that work and worship was the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember what that Hebrew word is by any chance? It's my favorite Hebrew word.
What is it?
Avodah.
Okay.
Of avodah, yeah. In the Old Testament, in the Bible, anytime you see the word work or worship, in a lot of cases, it's the same word in Hebrew.
Yes.
Avodah.
Avodah. I'm going to write that down.
Avodah.
Yeah.
Avodah. Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty incredible. That the first time I heard that, I got some goosebumps too, because what that means is, as we're serving God's other children through whatever it is we do in our quote work, that is seen as an equivalent activity from God's vantage point is the time that you spend worshiping. Mm-hmm. Same thing from his vantage point. There's not two separate words or two separate concepts there. It's the exact same thing. And it's pretty exciting to think, to the degree that I put my heart and my soul into my work, man, that's me serving other people. God sees and appreciates that. And it only makes sense as parents. When we look at our kids, we love when our kids, without being told, do something great for us as parents. We love it just as much when they do something great for our other kids. That
Mm-hmm.
same internal, like, oh, that's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Look at them taking care of each other.
Yeah.
That's just God saying, yeah, that's exactly how I am.
Yeah.
You take
Yeah.
care of each other. I love that just as much as when you're recognizing and spending time with
Sure.
me.
Sure. That rocked my world. And when you think about it, it's kind of almost sounds like common sense on the
Mm-hmm.
surface.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him standing on stage and he used both of his hands and he's like, work, worship, and then the same thing. And he explained it the way that you did. And that has really stuck with me on a very deep level because it really starts to trickle down into product creation. And, instead of just trying to throw the next thing out into the market, knowing that, my work is my worship, at the core of that is serving another human being. And so then product creation becomes about, the money side of it sort of takes a back seat. And then you really start to lean into that and figure out, how is this widget going to make somebody else's life better in some way? And so that
And
really.
and the cool thing is that's where the real money is.
Exactly. And he
You
said,
know,
certificates of appreciation, right?
that's
So if
right.
you serve people well, the money is kind of a secondary thing that will follow that service. And so,
You can't escape it. You
yeah,
just can't escape it. I mean,
yeah,
it sounds strange to say, and some listeners today are probably going to think to themselves, "Hey, that can't possibly be true." But if you serve enough people well enough, you cannot escape the money that's chasing you. I
hmm,
mean, literally, we have people wanting to give us money, and I don't have time to take it,
sure,
which sounds strange to say
yeah,
because I'm certainly not going to take it unless I can return more than the value.
yeah,
But they're lined up wanting to and waiting to give us. That's a good
hmm,
problem for a business to have, isn't it? People lined up wanting to give you money. Like, oh, that service isn't quite, it'll be here soon. Sit
sure,
tight. Sorry, it's taking longer than you thought. Like, please take my money now.
yeah,
But when you serve well, that's what you end up, that's what happens. It's a
hmm,
beautiful system that God designed, isn't that? Just,
yeah,
yeah. And I can sit and just spend time and days. And we've
yeah,
actually going to probably release that second episode. I don't remember what number it was. I'll stick it in the show notes for the listeners. But Lappin's keynote is one of the episodes of our podcast here within the last 10 episodes or so. You'll see it.
hmm,
His second talk that same day, I agree, was equally, if not more powerful. We'll need to turn that into a podcast episode too and stick it here. And coming up, probably at some point right around this episode, we'll do that as well. So
sure,
listeners can look for that one too. But
yeah,
yeah, good stuff, man. Good
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah.
keep the story going.
Yeah, so we pretty much chewed on that one little concept from the conference. I chewed on that, all 9 hours back home to Georgia. But yeah, so did the whole going back to our timeline here. 2017, you know, 2016 was the year of RA and OA, and 2017 became the year of private label, and so we dabbled in RA and OA a little bit and had success with that. I was still working a full time job, and eventually decided, man, it'd be cool to figure out a way to, have my own products without having to necessarily go out and be dependent on a retailer carrying a certain product. That product may or may not be on the shelf at any given time. So shifted from retail arbitrage, online arbitrage over into private label, and jumped into the PPL course, Proven Private Label, with Ryan and Jenny. Shout out to Ryan and Jenny. And man, pretty much soaked up that process, the 5-step test, and just picked the product and really just pulled it out of thin air. But launched that thing, and it started selling really well. It was a
I love it.
just out of thin air, and
Yeah.
most private label, people who do that, you normally look at like an existing product on Amazon,
Hmm.
like I don't know. An apple slicer. A lot of people use that as an example. So you might look at that and then go to China to figure out how to get your own version of that existing product. Well, a lot of that didn't really click for me early on in the private label process. I didn't really feel confident going to China. And so the way that Ryan and Jenny teach that really resonated with me because, he's like, you don't have to really go to China or spend thousands of dollars to really get this thing off the
Nope.
ground.
That's true.
And so the first product I launched, put it out there and it started selling. And I think the summer of 2017, and that blew my mind. I'm kind of mulling over that, but to come up with something out of thin air that does not exist. Because the way that I was doing private label, I was bringing products to market that didn't exist at all already.
Right.
Most
On
people
Amazon, you mean?
on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Because the magic question, do you remember the magic question in our private label training, which is part of the Proven Amazon course, by the way?
sure.
The question we teach you to ask, do you remember what it is?
Yes. Can I take this product out of its packaging and put it into my own? Is that right?
That's it, man. Nailed it.
Yeah. You see the
That's
thing.
not very complicated, is it?
No. But you see, the thing is, I did not, I actually did it wrong. I'll just be blunt about that. That did not click for me at the time. And so I never reached out to wholesalers or anything. And that's what that course teaches. You reach out to wholesalers and ask them, can I take your product out of its packaging and put it into my own? Well, I did not do that early on. And so I am naturally, my previous job, I was a graphic designer,
Mm.
uh, and also produced videos and things like that. But long story short, I came up with a totally brand new product and put a design on it and just threw it out there with no evidence that the market was going to respond to it well at all. And kind of got lucky in a way. So it's just over the past year where I've realized how risky that approach was, because you're bringing a product that nobody's ever seen before to the market.
Although we interviewed, it's probably been a year and a half or so ago, but I interviewed a guy. His only approach to Amazon was what you just described. Now, he wasn't designing the products himself, but
Mhm.
the only filter that he would run his ideas through was, is this product on Amazon yet? Yes or no?
Mhm.
Can I source a handful of them cheap? Yes or no? If if the answer to both those questions was yes,
Mhm.
buy a few and throw it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And he say one out of every 7 to 10 would take off and sell.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you could do a business that way. It's such a
Yeah.
low risk. Why not? And that's
Yeah.
one of the things I love about the way we talk about it around here is I just want to give people the confidence that this is not a complicated thing. There's not 50 hours of coursework you got to go study.
Yeah.
You came up with a product, came up with an idea. Sounds like you guessed at the keywords, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I did, guessed at it. And the whole summer of 2017, I launched multiple private label products where I was just designing something and getting it printed onto a product, whether it be, a balloon or a paper product. And, slowly started to learn that man, if you can, take, you know, your talent and skill, which I'm just naturally creative. I'm always drawing and trying to figure out new ways to tell stories. Well, I figured out if I could take, a golden gap per se, and then merge that with my God given talent and
Mm.
also be meeting a need, a human need at that same time, a lot of cool things happen when those two worlds kind of cross. And
That's
so,
incredible. Describe what you mean by a golden gap, just for the listeners who aren't aware.
yeah, sure. So Golden Gap, that the wording on that I think comes from Brett's course, Brett Bartlett, the Proven Performance Inventory, PPI. I think.
Nailed it. Another module of the
Yeah,
proven Amazon course. Everything we talked about so far is in the proven Amazon course, right?
yeah,
And what's that golden gap to you? You put it in your own words.
yeah. So the Golden Gap is really just where are the opportunities at on Amazon that aren't currently being occupied. What are people searching for on Amazon where they're not necessarily finding a solution? So
Hmm.
that's kind of the golden gap concept. And as a entrepreneur, you want to come in and figure out where those needs are, and then fill those needs with what you think would be the best solution for that per se. But yeah, the summer of 2017, I spent the whole summer doing that. And I think every private label product that I have launched at this point, all of them have sold at least one time. I think we're talking about maybe 15, I'd say roughly 15 items. All of them have sold at least once, except for one of the items. And so, which is a huge deal. I mean, that just blows my mind that you can come up with something out of thin air and try to solve a problem for somebody. It does something to a person to see another human being see that as a solution to their problem and buy it, give you money in exchange for that. That just blows my
That's
mind. So,
incredible. Yeah, I love it. And two things come to mind at this part of your story. First is perhaps the best way to find golden gaps is to make friends with that person. Maybe it's someone you live with, or maybe it's someone in your neighborhood that
mhm.
has a bunch of Amazon boxes sitting on their doorstep every day, because that person's shopping, and you ask them this simple question. You say, "Hey, when you're shopping on Amazon, do you ever type in search phrases that
Mm,
don't bring up what you were hoping it would bring up?"
sure.
And they say, "Yeah, that happens all the time." Any Amazon shopper will tell you that happens
Mm,
all the time. Say,
sure.
"Hey, would you send me those search phrases? Just copy paste it into an email, ping it over
Mhm.
to me." That is a source of, if you have 10 or 15 people who shop a lot on Amazon sending you those keyword ideas, you've got a wealth of potential
Yeah.
golden gaps that you can
Yeah,
test, right?
for sure.
But the other thing I'm thinking of, you said you're inventing products, basically, from scratch.
Mhm.
Like, how are you manufacturing these? You don't have to go into a ton of detail. I don't know if that's like a 3 hour explanation, or if you could say, something
Yeah.
simpler than that. But what's your process there
Yeah.
typically?
Yeah. Well, so far, again, just I used to be a professional, still am a professional graphic designer, and I just look for ways to really just to tell great stories. And a lot of my products have been print products. I remember when I think Christy Michelle, or I forget her last name, came out with Promotional Company Sourcing.
That's
She,
right. Another module in the Proven Amazon course. It's like we're doing an infomercial for the pack today,
yeah,
but
for
yeah,
sure.
that was a great. It taught you how to approach the promotional companies that print logos on
Mhm.
squishy balls or any other kind of you know
That's right.
giveaway type
Mhm.
products, and approach them for
Mhm.
unique products. I got you.
Yeah.
So okay, go ahead.
In the middle of me doing this process, that course came out, and
Hmm.
I was like, "What? I've been doing this for a couple of months now." So it was very validating for me. But one of the things she talked about in that course was, you can take any canvas of a product, whether it be paper or I don't know, balloon or a wristband, whatever it may be, and as long as you can tell a great story with that product, whether it be printing words on it or whatever it may be. You put something on that item that moves it from a commodity into being um, a solution to somebody's need, whatever that may be. But yeah, I pretty much do that from product to product. But just looking for ways to tell a great story. I had another item that I really I set on the idea. This is probably fall of 2018. I think. No, it was fall of 2017. I had an item that I had this idea with, and I set on the idea for probably 4 or 5 months, and I just didn't think it was a good idea. And which was another lesson that I learned was not to assume things, let the market actually do the validation for me. But sat on it for like 5 months and didn't launch it until January of 2018, I think. And I remember here locally, we had a Chamber of Commerce event that me and my wife were a part of. It was like a leadership type event. And I was doing the typical Amazon seller thing where you're just checking your sales, every 5 minutes.
Hmm.
And I checked my sales that morning, and I remember where I was and kind of where I was sitting at in the room, and had saw that that product had sold. But throughout the rest of that day, it continued to sell like hotcakes. I mean, it was just flying off the shelf, and I was not running any ads or anything. And again, I was just following the 5-step tests from Ryan and Jenny, and telling a great story that met a golden gap need. And that item has gone on to be my most successful product. And I think we spent maybe 38 cents on it. Well, actually, this is going back to relationships. The very first uh, shipment of that item, it cost me $0. We had a local vendor here in town that printed the items for me for free. Did not charge anything, and so my initial, launch of that cost me nothing. And
Wow.
then
So why did he do it for free? I'm curious. What was the arrangement there?
so he is good friends with my wife, really, and they actually printed some items for our wedding. We got married in September of 2014, and so we just had an existing relationship, more so he with my wife than anything. So,
Mhm.
but I think he and I had brought them a lot of business. I think from my previous job in terms of sending print projects to them. So I think he
Gotcha.
was just being a good neighbor and
Just a
just being,
friend doing a
yeah,
favor for a friend. You weren't asking. I'm
yeah,
sure it wasn't a huge order. You're testing out a new niche
right,
idea, right? So let's just
sure,
see what happens.
that's right.
And it's gone on to be, now this product's gone on to be your bestseller. Cost you once you got it rolling, 38 cents.
38 cents,
And
yeah,
what are you
and
selling them for?
so we're selling those things for I want to say 12.95. So I think
That's
the
great.
the return on investment is like, I don't know, like
Oh,
1,000, 1,200% or something.
huge, right?
Yeah, it's massive. So yeah, that happened in February of 2018, and that was another significant shift for me mentally, where I was like, man, this is wild, where you can come up with an idea out of thin air, and people see value in that. So it totally rocked my world, and so at that point, I'm really starting to solidify. My confidence is growing, and really, you kind of got the whole world in front of you, where you can there's 1,000 products I could come up with to meet 1,000 different needs. And so it kind of bottlenecks at some point where it's like I only have so much time
Hmm.
in the day to be that creative, right? And so I went on to launch a few more similar products like that. They've all sold and done well. Did some variations of that product on the existing listing, and those are all selling well. And so things really started to pick up 2018, and by the end of that year, my wife was really pushing me to. We had heard somewhere that if you're replacing at least half of your full time income, that may be a good time to consider jumping and going full time. And so we kind of ran some initial numbers, and with the high, profit margin or return on investment, and we follow a system called Profit First as well, where we're able to
Sure.
be sure we're taking care of ourselves along the way. So the numbers look good, and we probably took that jump a little earlier than most people would probably take that jump. But so that's kind of where we've been at. I'm about 10 months in so far to being, doing this full time. So
That's beautiful. How many products? You said you've launched around 15 of your own?
I think so. It may be more than that. Actually, I've kind of lost count of them, but yeah, I'd say about 15 ish, give or take. And
And how are you doing on replacing your previous corporate or business job? I'm sorry, your job, corporate income,
yeah, I think well, when we actually jumped, I think we were approaching the halfway mark.
right?
I'd probably say I looked at some numbers yesterday. I think we're still, I think we've crossed that mark, the halfway point. So we're still working on that. And that's one of the revelations I've had in the past, really, since we attended the conference, was a lot of the products that I've been creating, they're kind of time intensive. They take a lot of time to come up with these concepts and to be able to tell these stories,
Hmm.
on whatever the item is that we're launching. And so, like I said, it kind of bottlenecks. And so we're in the process of trying to shift to another strategy. I think I'll always want to do my own product creation, but we're trying to shift gears a little bit so that we can speed up the reinvestment time frame, if that makes sense. So looking at wholesale and maybe even traditional private label. So since the conference, I've probably opened in the last 2 weeks. I think I've opened like 5 or 6 wholesale accounts, and so we're going that direction to complement some of the
Mm,
things that
very
we've done.
good. Yeah, diversifying a little bit. That's
Hmm.
beautiful. Well, you'll more than get there very quickly.
Yeah,
You've got the creative drive that it takes to succeed. It's very apparent.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, we're excited about it. I think we're definitely not where we want to be with it. From a financial standpoint, we're definitely on the smaller side of the spectrum. But fortunate to have really good, profit margins where we are able to, I think it's important to take money out of the business, as you are building it, because I think it just does something psychologically for the
Hmm.
entrepreneur. So
Hmm.
we've really tried to buy into that process. And my wife's been a huge part of this. She was encouraging me to go ahead and jump and do this full time,
Yeah,
even
because
though
she's still working, right, at this
that's
time.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your long term goal? Like, what's the perfect scenario for you guys? Say 5 years from now, where would you like to be?
Yeah, I think, I think long term, I think what we would like to do is, I would obviously, be still doing what I'm doing. I think she eventually, at some point, would like to be in a position to maybe we'll have kids and start a family. And I think her ideal scenario would probably want to be home with the kids, full time. And so that's definitely a dream of hers.
Man, I highly encourage it. If you can all be under the same roof, man, it pays off dividends unlike any other decision you could make as a couple, in my opinion.
Sure.
We're reaping the benefits now as, we've got 2 of our 5 soon to move out. And I'm just looking at where they are as men and how much time I've got to spend and pour into them and all the things I didn't have to unlearn.
Yeah.
Help them unlearn that the world poured into them that completely disagrees with our worldviews. Now they're just solid and both getting ready to go out and do awesome things, and the value and the time I have left with the other 3. Never imagined this stage of life would come this fast, but dude, it comes fast. So if you have a chance to be there, be home, and have mom right there, the best teacher, the best nurturer they'll ever have. Yeah. When you guys start that phase. Yeah. So good. I love that you're thinking in that direction. Hopefully that encourages someone else out there too, because the opportunity is there. Right now you're dinks, double income, no kids.
Yeah.
That'll change soon enough, right? Sure, you got grandparents after you already.
Yeah.
So that'll be changing soon.
Right.
But stick to that plan, buddy. I just want to encourage you in that direction because you will not regret it, even if it requires some sacrifices in other areas. But the beautiful thing about the time we live in, man, we're blessed, is you can build an incredible business, multiple income streams online, and get to be both things that our culture tells you got to pick this one or that one. And we're like, no, I want both. Yeah. I'm going to be a dad who's here and available and make a great income. Yeah, you can do that, dude. Yeah, I mean that's the road we've been on for 17 years. We've helped a lot of other dads come home, and moms be there to help the business grow or whatever role that family spells out. But this is beautiful. Beautiful. Well, what else do you want to share with folks? Any other tips or ideas or encouragement that you've had in mind to share with folks who are listening today?
Yeah. I had a lot of notes here, which I knew we wouldn't have time to go into all of it.
Because you interviewed me.
No, I just think, I think just a lot in common. And I think we think a lot of the same way as well. But, I would say, I was thinking like, what value could I provide to a new person who's just starting out and probably thinking that they probably missed the Amazon boat, in many ways. There's a lot of bad information out there, and there's, whether people intend to do that or not, I think it's important to surround yourself with a community that you can trust. Number one, that you feel, confident and comfortable in. That's what I found here in this community. The second thing is focus. I think earlier on in my process, I was distracted, with a lot of different things, and things really started to break through when I got laser focused on one strategy. And you kind of have to have this, like soldier warrior mentality where you almost commit to yourself and say, I'm not going to stop doing this until it works. You almost have to have that mindset, or at least I did, starting out. And when I got extremely laser focused like that, that's where things really started to change. And I've started to learn the value of that, when I, maybe I've changed and start to do wholesale. I get laser focused in on that. I'm like, I know this works. It's not a question of if it works. It's just a matter of how hard am I willing to work at it. And so we actually just shipped off our first 2 wholesale shipments this past week. And so we're working on that. And I would just tell people to surround yourself with positive people and just be careful, not to assume too many things. The biggest thing is to take action and let the market, validate you from there.
You said some big things there, buddy. And I completely agree. The community, take action, focus. That's, we could do another 2 hours on those. But if someone's disciplined enough to dive in and take what you just said, those 3 things serious, that was worth the price of admission for the last 45 seconds right there, man.
Yeah.
Take action, focus, pay attention to the community that you're a part of. If you're not a part of a community, the lone wolves just don't make it long term. They just don't. And if you're drifting around with shiny object syndrome and you never get focused in and say, I'm going to stick with this, right? And then if you're just in constant study mode, study, never taking action, which a lot of people find themselves. That's kind of the sister of shiny object syndrome, that whole thing, right? I mean, these are all very common ailments for us as entrepreneurs. The other personality types don't struggle with those things. We do. We tend to isolate ourselves. We tend to overstudy, overthink, overanalyze, take notes in the middle of the night, get up the next day and not do it.
Sure. Yeah. Which is easy to do, and especially in this community. I mean, you have y'all have
so many exciting things.
Yeah.
We're barely able, here we are with 100 people on our team. And these are people who are working, like Mary we mentioned earlier, my mom, people who are fairly full-time or nearly full-time. And we've got this community of thousands of people around the world building incredible businesses with ideas pinging at us constantly. And we swat good ideas away constantly. Good ideas are no more valuable than bad ideas to us. They're a distraction. We swat them away. Right ideas, however, float to the top. And we vet them, and here they are. And there's so many right ideas in any given month, Jonathan, that we have a hard time implementing them all ourselves. That's our bottleneck. Because the last thing we're going to do is roll out a concept that hasn't been proven yet. And the way we're going to prove it is people on our team are going to do it, show that it works, it can be repeated, it's something that can be scaled, a whole bunch of people could take advantage of it. That takes time, effort, energy, right? But we barely have the time to take advantage of. You talk about all the good ideas, we barely have time with a team of 100 to do all that. So those who are still out there with a young married couple like you guys, and there's all these good ideas. I can imagine it can feel very overwhelming, but I love your advice is focus in, stick with this until it works. Whatever's working today and is exciting, it's still going to be working 6 months from now and exciting then too, or it wasn't worth getting into.
Sure.
All right. So don't ever fall for you got to act now. I don't care if it's ours or someone else's. If it's a good idea, it'll still be around 6 months from now. Stick to the course that you're on. I love that advice. We've had to take it ourselves. I've had to narrow the path that I've been on. Instead of wearing 40 hats, I'm down to wearing 3 or 4. I'm trying to get that down to 1 or 2, right? Yeah. Because then everybody can kind of operate in their lane, but that requires a great deal of focus. Good advice, buddy. Good advice, man. Sure. What else did you have? Anything else on your mind before we start to wrap this one up?
The only other thing I forgot that I had on my notes here, we did join Dynasty Toys as well over the past year, which I've been really excited about that, coming alongside Brett and being able to join kind of the initial stages of him really starting to build that community around the whole Dynasty Toys brand. So we're on board with that. I was actually a little nervous because yesterday I think I checked the podcast and I saw where Brett was the last episode. I was like, crap, I got to follow Brett. I was hoping you had like a backlog of episodes that would put, me and Brett away from each other.
Well, good news for you. Typically, we've got 5 or 6 episodes for the time we publish until the time we publish next. So you didn't want to be right on the tail end of Brett. Is that what you're saying? No, there'll be 4 or 5 episodes in between the two of you. It's okay.
That's a tough act to follow, Brett. So thanks, Brett.
It takes us a couple of weeks to get these out, man. You're safe. There's going to be a 3 or 4 episode buffer between Brett and you. Sure. So
I think that we joined that. Got to meet the Dynasty team, Robert, and got to Leah is actually my team leader. So we're on Team Job. So I got to meet her. They're such good-hearted people, and they're just such sweet people. And you can just tell like they're built for that from the core. So we're just excited to be a part of that journey, and we're vested for the long term with this community.
That's beautiful. Yeah, the headquarters that we're building right there. Well, right where we had the Proven Conference there in Central Illinois, coming together beautifully. We're hoping to have a lot more events because you talked about that camaraderie, that utmost spiritual and emotional energy that comes from gathering. We want to do a lot more of that. That's coming. Sure. I'm sure you've heard word of that. We've got a venue that we're building. We can put 350 people in there anytime. And actually, the church that we used for the Proven Conference, they've said, "Hey, anytime you guys want to do something, our doors are open here too during the week. As long as we don't have a church service, come on in." Because a lot of the people who are in leadership of the church that we used, it's the Vineyard in Central Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. They're actually very vested as well. A lot of them have Amazon businesses, and the pastoral leadership there, they're very plugged in, and they're in the dynasty community right there alongside you, Jonathan. So yeah, pretty exciting times. Sometimes it's hard to take it all in, but I want to encourage the people who are kind of feeling like you and we're several years into this, and like, man, those guys are so far ahead of me. No, there's so much opportunity, even if you're brand new, even if you're completely green. Come in, stub your toe a couple times maybe, but the risks are so low. You can get through this learning curve, and you can build an incredible business and be a part of our community and start to experience the camaraderie of having a community that has your back, building an incredible business. It's been 17 years and it never gets old for me, Jonathan. I know being able to get up without an alarm clock and plow through the most important things that I have on my desk with my kids and my wife right here nearby. And if it's a nice day, maybe we cut the day short and do what we got to do, or do what we want to do that day. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's just such a blessing. I want that for as many families as that want to pursue it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, buddy, great hanging out with you today. And sorry we missed your better half, but tell Whitney thanks for loaning you to us.
Well,
for a short time here. And let me just address the listeners too, and make sure you realize that, man, we love doing this show because we're doing it for you. This is a service to you. Hopefully you feel encouraged and inspired and energized by this. We've got great resources for you, of course, but if all you want to do is just kind of soak in the free content, hey, we're totally cool with that. We're trying to shift a culture here. We're trying to change the way people think. And I really appreciate Jonathan being here with me today to kind of go through, and hopefully you heard our hearts today. But know this, we're praying for you. We're in your corner. We want you to succeed. That's the only way my team and I measure our success, is by the success of the listeners and students in our community. So until we have another episode in the very near future, God bless you, business building warriors. This is Jim, Silent Sales Machine Radio. Talk to you again real soon.